Chiney Ogwumike bringing us back, bringing us in.
Yeah.
Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, the ESPN app. She is Chiney Ogwumike. We get to talk in like snippets on SportsCenter.
You're right. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Couple of minutes. I'm Randy Scott, not Stephen A. I'm as surprised as you are that I'm here.
Same here.
Last week it got off the rails a little bit with Matt Berry.
It's going to happen
again. So the bar for you, Chiney, is very low.
Don't worry. It's going to happen again.
You're going to be the rising tide that's just going to lift all boats on this
Here's
program.
A fun story real quick about those two. Those two guys were reading a highlight. It was a golf highlight, and they literally made each other laugh so much they were crying. Matt had to walk off set, and none of them can talk. And I was sitting there like, so do I take this golf highlight and try to... No, I'm not going to.
And how scared, how nervous were you to have to suddenly jump in?
I was not nervous at all. I was just like, this is finally my moment. I can do this.
Go. You're like, go ahead and clip their mics. We're good.
Yeah, I'm good.
We're good. Hey, join the show. It's going to be a fun couple hours. 888-SAY-ESPN. That is 888-729-3776. It is time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. We've got Dan Orlovsky coming up in about 8 minutes, 8.5 minutes time. A lot of football to get into with him. Right?
Yeah.
Le'Veon, I know you have a question about Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown, and I have a question about the AAF, how a guy in Orlovsky probably still could be out there slinging it.
Facts.
How he views that league that's dominated over the weekend.
Yeah, it really did.
It had to be a debut that probably even exceeded their
expectations.
Lofty.
100%.
But how do you sustain that?
Exactly.
Right?
That's the question.
You've got that sauce, you've got that fire coming off of that debut weekend. How do you keep that going? So we'll talk to Dan about that. I do want to get into, though, this news that sometimes some things just fall in your lap, and we get this Kyler Murray news right before we come on, and you're like, wait a minute. He gave the A's
a cold shoulder.
The cold shoulder. Let's get the news first. Kyler Murray, who first-round draft pick from the Oakland Athletics, top 10 pick last year, but $4.5 million worth of reason to go play baseball, tweets moments ago, and this is his words. These are his words, not ours. Quote, moving forward, I am firmly and fully committing my life and time to becoming an NFL quarterback.
Love it.
Football has been my love and passion my entire life. I was raised to play QB, and I very much look forward to dedicating 100% of myself to being the best QB possible and winning NFL championships. I have started an extensive training program to further prepare myself for upcoming NFL workouts and interviews. I eagerly await the opportunity to continue to prove to NFL decision makers that I am the franchise QB in this draft, close quote. And you said cold shoulder to the A's.
Yeah, because I guess he didn't really mention anything about the A's, and I think they were clearly trying to be as supportive as possible. But this is more about Kyler Murray and his decision. And I really like this because I think we all knew deep down that his heart was with football. But there have been a lot of question marks. A lot of people have said during this time, since his last collegiate game to now, his size is going to hold him back. And everyone talks about that. They also talk about how he exited in the postseason. So for me, I'm excited for Kyler Murray because I think he's taking all of those questions and using it as motivation, but more so he's letting us know exactly where his heart and his passion lies. And we all knew, I think when you saw him on the biggest of stages, that he loved football.
Loves football. It's great to be a man. It's great to be an athlete, period, right, with options.
Yeah, that's true.
Like Chiney, you're obviously a world-class basketball player. Any other things growing up that piqued your interest athletically?
Yeah. So when I was at Stanford University, I had the decision, and
Never
I knew.
Heard of it.
Oh yeah, I know. No one knows about it, right? Growing up, my sisters and I, we actually started off playing gymnastics.
Okay.
I know, and it was my parents got us out of that. Well, actually, my parents had to have someone tell them to get us out of that because we were too tall.
You'd still be doing it.
Long story short, I knew I was not destined for gymnastics greatness when I would never make it over the uneven bars because my butt would hit the ground and I would never make it over.
Too tall.
Too tall.
Sorry.
Too long of legs.
Champion's problem.
Started playing basketball, but then when we were in high school, we also played volleyball. My sisters and I have 3 sisters, and we love volleyball. We went to the state championship in volleyball just like we did in basketball, but we had to make a decision at Stanford because you sort of are told to specialize at that point. And I remember my head coach, Tara Vanderveer, Hall of Famer, fantastic coach and individual in life, was like, are you serious or not? And we knew deep down that basketball was our game. Wait, do you want me?
How do I describe that look for everybody who's driving around there at work? Because we're on ESPN News and you can see it. But basically, this is the fix him with a look.
Yeah, it was
she fixed it like a stern, really? What?
You gonna try to do both? You gonna miss the full preseason and all that? I was like, you're right. Let me stay in my lane. But for us, we always knew growing up, even though growing up we knew that volleyball was fun and it was great and we were good at it and we could probably do both. But how great would you be if you tried to could do both. We just had the huge 30 for 30 with Deion Sanders, right?
Yeah.
Talking about how hard it was and how difficult it is for not only just you as an individual to manage, but organizations and separate sports to manage. But I'm happy for Kyler Murray because it seems like he's going where his heart lies, and I hope he proves a lot of people wrong in the NFL.
All right, our ESPN senior MLB insider, it's Jeff Passan, tweeting out the following. The finances of this are fascinating because the total compensation for a guy drafted, the draft slot for Kyler Murray, top 10 pick by Oakland Athletics last year's draft, more than about $4.5 million. So Kyler Murray, this is according to Jeff Passan, will return $1.29 million of the $1.5 million signing bonus that the A's gave him last year, and he further forfeits $3.16 million that was due from the A's March 1st.
Well, that's like in 2 weeks.
The A's retain, it's coming up. The A's retain his rights, don't get a compensatory draft pick. So that draft pick, again, top 10, gone for the A's. It's
in
just
the NFL,
gone.
where he falls, what is his potential payout as a rookie? What do we know that?
It's slotted in the NFL as well. I think the most recent mock projections that I've seen from Todd McShay and from Mel Kiper Jr. was right around 13th to the Dolphins. So that money was considerably more than what he would make from the A's.
Take the risk.
If it's your
high
love,
risk, high reward.
If it's your love as well, and let's be honest, like people, it's very easy, and we want to caution anybody who's driving around and listening to this, and they're going to the job site and they're going to start bragging like, man, I was listening to ESPN radio, and what's this Murray guy doing? Football's so dangerous.
Yeah.
And the careers are longer in baseball. No. Not at the position that he's playing, and not with the way that position is officiated in 2019 and moving forward.
Exactly. Moving forward, I think they're doing more to protect the passer, right? And if you think about what Kyler is making this decision on, I don't think he's expecting per se to come out and start in the NFL, but I think he's giving himself a chance to sort of at least see what that potential would be, because if his heart lies there, then why not see where it goes? And if you're going to get paid, this is one thing I know a lot. Going to Stanford, I know it's revenge of the nerds, but a lot of the guys there have had great NFL careers. I was there when Andrew Luck was there, when Richard Sherman was there. There are a lot of guys, even Christian McCaffrey followed after.
Yeah.
And they always, at Stanford, we're very cutting edge with our resources and just the awareness of where we are in the game. And when you talk to those guys, they fully understood the risks that they were taking by entering the NFL draft. They understood. They understood that they're likely to have issues long term. These are just realities of the game. But they still loved it so much that they're willing to give themselves a shot. So I don't think it's about negating the shot from the jump, not entering the NFL. It's more so making sure you're being healthy and tempering your longevity in your career that's a responsible way.
Absolutely, yeah. And like I said, we'll have Dan Orlovsky in a couple of minutes to help us make sense of this and some of what we saw from the AAF and some NFL free agency or potential free agency. Well, we'll just say Antonio Brown's on the market, all right?
Yeah.
That's how we'll phrase it. It's Chiney Ogwumike and Randy Scott in for Stephen A. on the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. What is sort of fascinating to me, looking at a guy in Kyler Murray, who you watch him and just the eye test says he's the best player on the field.
Yeah.
On most fields, right? I mean, he's a Heisman Trophy winner, so that sort of backs it up. But you're also like, he's a little small.
Yeah.
A little small to be an NFL quarterback, at least how you view it and I'm considerably older than you, but like he's not Dan Marino, not prototypical size, right? But the NFL itself has changed. You need a quarterback who can move the pocket.
Yes.
Pose different stresses on a defense. But then, 5'11", 194, and that's maybe generous on both counts, on both the height and the weight.
I need to get a realistic. I don't know if they'll just measure him when he reports.
At
but
the combine, they'll do it.
Did you see the video when Stephen A. Where was he? Was it the Super Bowl? I can't even remember where he just last appeared. He looked taller than what people expected him to be.
Who's Stephen A?
No, Stephen A. He was standing next to Stephen A. And I think he was maybe 1 or 2 inches off of Stephen A. And people don't notice. Stephen A. is a pretty tall dude.
Stephen A. is a lot taller than you think.
So that's why when people say he's so small, and I understand, like, okay, maybe it's like, the cleats, everything, the shoes, all that stuff, the extra inch that we always add as athletes. I'm not going to write him off because clearly his talent outweighs his body measurements.
I just think, and I heard someone describe it, and I listen to a lot of podcasts. I'm on Twitter all the time. I can't give credit to this, but I just know that I know it's not mine. I'm not trying to pass it off as mine. But somebody described Kyler Murray as a small whatever he's listed. So if he's 5'11", 194, he's a small version of that. And it's one thing to be short, but if you're short and you're 210, 215 pounds, maybe you can take, just because you're officiated a little differently doesn't mean you're not going to get hit.
Yeah.
Especially the way that he plays his game. He's at his best when he's on the move. He can play on time, but he can also improvise, and that's one of the things that's going to make him a first-round draft pick. It's just if you're 5'11", 194,
a small 5'11".
You're more like 5'9", 3/4.
That's true.
190, 185.
They list me in the WNBA at 6'4", but
Yeah.
I'm a small 6'4". I'm really 6'2". So.
That just means you're quick. That just means you're quick.
I'm lying.
So that was Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. Again, the phone number 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. Is Kyler Murray making the right decision? He has made it official, going and focusing his talents and his time and his efforts moving forward to being an NFL quarterback and not playing baseball as he was already drafted by the Oakland Athletics. Helping us make sense of that, a draft pick in his own right, Dan Orlovsky joining us on the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. Dan, you hear this. Again, this news probably about 15, 20 minutes old. What was your reaction?
Smart decision by Kyler Murray. I believe it's the right one. Likely going to be a first-round draft pick, and I love it. The NFL draft is always exciting. It just became infinitely more exciting because he's as electric of a football player that's come out in years. Maybe I know Saquon last year, but Reggie Bush type of hype and electricity, and I want to see this guy in a football field. So it's very, very good news for the NFL.
Hey, Dan, so I have a quick question before I get to my real question. Did you watch the Grammys, at least a little bit of it yesterday?
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it.
So you know who was in attendance, right? Antonio Brown, Julian Edelman. You saw all of that?
Sure.
Did you see the mustache by Antonio?
Oh, I did not see AB's mustache, no.
I think he dyed it gray, gold. It's very different.
With the hair, too?
Yeah, the hair, very different. But I was just wondering, where do you see the direction of the locker room right now with the Steelers? I know leadership has been the big question. Who's the point guard there?
Yeah, I don't see there's any way where you could bring AB back. And, Jenny, you know this, where, Randy, you probably do as well. A locker room, especially pro sports, locker rooms are like marriages. And you can overcome a lot. There's going to be hard times. We saw that with the Patriots this year. Throughout, really since 2017, there was some difficult moments, but they stuck together because no one broke trust. AB, that Week 17 game where he could play but decided not to type thing, you broke the trust of your locker room. You broke the trust of your teammates. And just like in a marriage, it's one of the most difficult things to recapture is that trust. And as a quarterback, you got to know I can count on you all the time. As a teammate, you got to know that I can count on you all the time. So who's running the point? Who's calling the shots? It seems to be that there's a little bit of an awakening or a reawakening in Pittsburgh with the Rooneys and Tomlin kind of taking a little bit more control back, but it's certainly going to be Big Ben. And when a receiver chooses to do what he did to the quarterback and his teammates and in many ways quit on them, I just don't see any way of bringing him back in your locker room.
Talking with Dan Orlovsky, our ESPN NFL and quite frankly, just football in general analyst here on the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. How much of the blame, though, I mean, you bring up Ben Roethlisberger, how much of the blame falls on the quarterback? Because, I listen, Dan, I wasn't around you in your playing days, but I have to believe that you would have probably handled yourself and handled some of the drama in whatever locker room you were in a little bit better than a guy in Ben Roethlisberger who seemingly goes so public so often.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those situations that we so often as kids get told by our parents, two wrongs don't make a right. And I'm not sitting here saying Ben publicly criticizing. Ben is a Hall of Famer and has accomplished much more than so many other players. And whether you agree with how he did it or not, at the end of the day, Ben showed up and did his job. And at the end of the day, his teammates knew Ben was going to be there on game day. Where that Week 17 game, it comes out whether AB liked what Ben was doing or liked or disliked that he was publicly chastising people or doesn't like Big Ben at all. That's fine. At the end of the day, when Sunday comes around or a Monday night comes around and you've got a game to play and your teammates have put in the time and the sacrifices to play in meaningful games and you in many ways choose not to play in that game, that is a trust that I've seen guys overlook a lot in locker rooms and disagree with people a lot. But when the game came, and it was business. And when AB put all of that stuff of his own interests above the trust of his teammates, I can't fathom that ever becoming a relationship that is fixed.
And speaking of locker room issues, I was watching you this morning on Get Up and First Take, and I thought this was a really interesting conversation you guys were having. And it surrounded Le'Veon Bell, and you guys were trying to find a good landing space for there. And the Houston girl in me got hyped because I think you said Houston could be an opportunity there. Where do you see Le'Veon Bell potentially landing?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is Le'Veon Bell could fit with 32 teams. He's one of the 5 best players in the NFL. So you can make the justification that he fits anywhere. I don't like him in Houston mainly because this. Bill O'Brien has not been able to keep a quarterback healthy. And part of that is because they haven't really invested into an offensive line. And Deshaun Watson is one of the most special young talents we have in the NFL. Yet he's the most sacked quarterback in the history of the playoffs going into the playoffs last year. And he took a beating his first 2 years. So if I'm Houston, I'm going, wait, I've got to invest into my offensive line to keep my quarterback upright more than I need a running back. Lamar Miller's still a good player. They also need to figure out a way to keep clowning. They also need to figure out somebody opposite Hopkins. I like Le'Veon in 2 specific places. Green Bay, because Aaron Rodgers is going into his 15th year, and they need some offensive weapons. They only really have Devontae Adams. So I like giving a quarterback that's got another 3-year window or so, hopefully longer, but a 3-year window, an absolutely dynamic weapon. And then I look at Baltimore and I go, man, if you could take advantage of the Lamar Jackson rookie contract and find a way to get Le'Veon Bell, because all I think about is if you're going to go all in with Lamar, then go all in and use that offense, the zone read, multiple quarterback run offense. And I just think of the mesh point when Lamar sticks that ball out and Le'Veon kind of patiently taking it from him and having to look at defensive ends going, what are you going to do? Because if you know, I just look at that and going, that could be a very big problem for defenses.
If it's possible to reburn a burnt bridge, Le'Veon Bell going to Baltimore after his run in Pittsburgh, Dan, I mean, you might have to pick up the ashes and just reignite that whole thing if he does do it. But that is a nightmare.
The TV executives would be happy, I promise you.
That's a fact.
Yeah, the storylines are there. Hey, one quick note here on the AAF. I as a fan was surprised at the quality of the football over the weekend. I don't know about you, Dan. You would know better than I would. But what were your initial impressions from this league that dominated social media and quite frankly TV ratings all weekend?
Yeah, I you know, similar to what you would get probably in like the second half of a preseason game. You know, people are still riding high off what was an incredible NFL season, and there's a lot of great stories or potential for this league. There needs to be very clear, in my opinion, like very clear lines of what the league is and or could be. It is not a feeder league. The feeder league is the NCAA. It is a developmental and trial league, absolutely, where you try some stuff out, whether it's rules or officiating or replay, things like that. I don't like the NFL is what it is because of the premier star talent at specific positions: wide receiver, quarterback, running back, freak defensive ends, corners. You're never going to get those in the AAF. Now you can get, you know, when I made this point, when I went into the NFL and when Tony Romo came into the NFL, even Tom Brady, we had 3rd-string quarterbacks. We don't have those in the NFL. We may not have had a Tony Romo if the rules were what they were, where most teams keep 2 quarterbacks. We would have never had a Jake Delhomme. So there is value in that. I just think there's the reality that in 2020, the CBA is going to get renegotiated. And I got a feeling that a lot of coaches are going to go, you know, because when they redid it in 2010, they got rid of all the March off-season time with players and April off-season time with players and made the rules much stricter, and coaches hate it. And that's where you develop a lot of these quarterbacks, and a lot of young receivers develop that way. And so I think that in that new 2020 CBA, coaches are going to go back and go, no, we want that springtime back. And so I think that's going to be a come to head with this league or the XFL is you might see the NFL more willing to revisit some of those spring rules to make sure all those players are in their building. And the reality, too, guys, is like the NFL has 90 guys on a roster for the majority of the year. 90. If you're not on one of those 90 rosters, I do find it hard that you're going to come from another league and make an NFL team.
Yeah, that's the question I actually wanted to lean into. Do you think that there's a real professional path based on the momentum that could potentially be held in the AAF, a professional path for these players to make it to the NFL again?
I don't, mainly because, like what I just said, like there's 90 guys on NFL rosters. And maybe like a guy here or there, yes, probably likely at a quarterback spot. But then again, that would have to mean that NFL teams are more willing to carry 3 quarterbacks, go back to the old rule where you could carry 3 and it didn't necessarily count towards your 53 active roster. And also, the development, what are we seeing in the NFL right now? We're seeing much more of an infusion of everything college coaches, college schemes, college thought process, college terminology. And this league is mainly coached by guys who have been in the NFL for a long time. Mike Martz, Mike Singletary. A lot of these guys have been part of the NFL and are no longer part of the NFL. So that the NFL is going to have to look at it and go, where are we seeing the dominance in our league play out? Kind of a recycled old school coaching and scheme and teaching aspect, or the new age that is kind of being infused from the college level. I think that's a reality too, is like, are you going to be pulling from the college or the AAF or an XFL league?
He's Dan Orlovsky. He's our ESPN football analyst, and yeah, we got to update the graphic in the title for you, man, because we're talking AAF as much as we're talking NFL here in February. Dan, we appreciate the time on the Stephen A. Smith Show.
I appreciate you guys. Have a great afternoon.
All right, the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is brought to you by Prilosec OTC. Kick your antacid habit with Prilosec OTC. I wonder, and this is a great question, and Nuno, our producer, posed it. I wonder if Kyler Murray got some assurance, or his agent got some assurance, his agent, Scott Boras, that he was a top 15 guy.
I'm sure he probably did. I mean,
so not a strong quarterback draft class.
Yeah, and when you always choose, being a professional athlete myself, you always are evaluating throughout the course of your final year where you're going to fall in the draft. Should I come out? Should I stay? What's the deal? And I believe that those measurements were taken the entire season long. So I would be confident to see him taken in the top 15 because that's what everyone's pretty much saying so far.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. She's Chiney Ogwumike. I'm Randy Scott, in for Stephen A. on the Stephen A. Smith Show. We have Mark Teixeira up next. I think Mark's in studio. He'll be better dressed than me, to be sure. We have a fire tweet from Justin Verlander, former Cy Young Award winner. I mean, and he's talking about how baseball system, his words, broken. We'll ask Mark Teixeira for his take on that and what more he can tell us about this Manny Machado, Bryce Harper situation as pitchers and catchers report today. A little baseball with Tex when we come back. It's the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. Hey, only 3 days left until Valentine's, guys, so your special someone deserves the best, and that's why every Valentine's you have to order from the Rose Authority, 1-800-Flowers.com. Right now, you can get 18 red roses for $29.99 or upgrade to 24 assorted roses plus a vase for $10 more. This is an unbelievable offer from 1-800-Flowers to order 18 red roses for $29.99 or upgrade to 24 assorted roses plus a vase for $10 more. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com, click the radio icon, and enter code Stephen A. All one word, Stephen A. That's 1-800-Flowers.com, code Stephen A. Hurry. Offer expires today. Mark Teixeira when we come back.
Learn what affects your credit scores and what you can do to improve them with Credit Karma. Maybe you need to dispute an error in your credit report, or you're paying too much interest. Credit Karma can help with that. Visit.
I don't think anybody can deny this reality. When you look at Paul George and the way that he has been performing, and you look at Russell Westbrook, and then you look at those young athletes that they have, I got to tell y'all something, man. Oklahoma City may be the biggest threat to the Golden State Warriors. I look at the powers that be in the East, Milwaukee, Boston, Toronto, Philadelphia. You know what impressed me? I thought Philadelphia had the best pre-deadline moves because they add Jimmy Butler and then they add Tobias Harris with Redick, with Simmons, with Joel Embiid. That's something special to behold. Their depth is still a question mark, but I got to give credit where credit is due. But then Milwaukee, who's got the best record in basketball at 40-13. Toronto's 40-16. When you look at Milwaukee, adding Mirotic, he can ball. He's a stretch four. He can do some damage for you on the perimeter. And that's the one huge question mark that you had about the Milwaukee Bucks. So that also makes it very, very, very interesting I just got to tell y'all that. And so I look at it from that perspective, and things are getting very interesting in the Eastern Conference. The Boston Celtics, let me tell you what I saw last night. I saw a team that had trouble getting out and defending the three, but I also saw a team that's still exhausting themselves trying to fit in Gordon Hayward, not paying enough attention to how it's compromising the rest of their squad. I saw a Terry Rozier, who was balling last night, get relegated to the bench because it was time to bring Kyrie Irving back in. I say, why have Marcus Smart in there? Why not put Terry Rozier and Kyrie Irving in there at the same time? Why not do that? That seemed to be something that would have made the most sense to me. Brad Stevens is going to have to figure this out. I haven't given up on Boston coming out of the East, but Brad Stevens is going to have to figure this out. He really is.
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
So you're sort of DJ by extension.
I am. The Grammys were yesterday, so we're
for
getting all Grammy
music.
winners.
I like it.
Introing us.
There it
so
is.
that's Dua Lipa.
Well played.
Best new artist.
She won?
She did, yeah.
Okay.
She won, I think, 2 Grammys.
I sort of guessed was she. Like, I wasn't sure if it was like a DJ situation or not.
We're listening to only winners here.
I have never felt older than looking at some of the nominees.
It's
like,
true.
like Post Malone, okay.
Yeah,
like I know,
okay.
Halls.
That's
like
your
okay.
threshold?
Like,
Okay.
well, no, I know who they are, but
Yeah.
some of the other ones is
like,
oh, okay, cool. They're an award winner.
Cool fit.
Chiney Ogwumike, Randy Scott. We're in for Stephen A. on the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. 888-SAY-ESPN is the telephone number. That is 888-729-3776. Mark Teixeira is here in studio, which is great. We just talked to Dan Orlovsky over the phone, and we were talking a little bit about this news that broke before we came on, like right before we came on. Kyler Murray walking away from baseball, choosing to devote his time and his talents to becoming an NFL quarterback. Listen, he's a top 10 pick, a number 9 overall pick by the Oakland Athletics a year ago in that draft. How does this sit with you, his decision, his choice?
Man, if I'm the Oakland A's, obviously I want that draft pick back.
Right.
Because we know how important draft picks are in this day and age. I mean, we have a team that, doesn't have a lot of money. They're trying to find diamonds in the rough, and they might have found one of the greatest athletes of this generation and said, hey, this guy can play baseball. Let's get him on our team, see what he can do in a baseball uniform. And now he's saying sayonara.
But if you're in Kyler Murray's shoes, you being a player yourself, how would you evaluate his decision?
100% he made the right decision. And there's a few reasons here. Number one, Kyler Murray, if he would have gone on to play baseball, he's in the minor leagues 2, 3, 4 years. And the low minor leagues are not fun. He's going to go from, being on a bus in, who knows where, Midwest League, right? To now being front and center, maybe with a great NFL franchise. Who knows where you get drafted? If he gets drafted in top 15 picks, he might play under a good quarterback, be in the spotlight. I mean, if I'm making that decision, especially if I can get more money, 15th pick in the draft in the NFL is still going to make $14-15 million, right? Mm-hmm. And I just think overall, great idea, great deal. And Kyler Murray is going to be, he's going to be special on the football field.
And I think a lot of the controversy here is the safety concerns with football. What would you think about those people saying, well, baseball is quote unquote a safer sport. Why don't you choose baseball?
Well, I mean, listen, there's tough parts about every sport, right? I mean, football, obviously you have the concussion issue, but I mean, baseball, I've had 3 surgeries, right? I played baseball.
My counts too.
Right? So, exactly. Basketball, soccer is a tough sport to play.
Yeah.
So, I think if you're playing not to get hurt, then you just would never play sports. You just say, hit the books and become a doctor. But Kyler Murray is one of those guys that he's going to figure out how to play in the NFL and keep himself healthy. I think you look at some of the best players nowadays, they've realized, hey, I want my offensive line to do a lot of the work. Let me use my legs when I need to, but I'm going to throw that ball. That's how I'm going to make my money is if I throw that ball.
Yeah, and that's how I'm going to extend my own career if I get rid of this thing. We got Mark Teixeira here in studio. Does this say anything to you about baseball as a whole here, that a young person, talented, man with options, chose one thing over baseball?
If I would have been a first-round draft pick, I'd have gone the NFL too.
Hey.
I mean, I just would
Okay.
have. Like
Yeah.
I said, no minor leagues. You have a chance to have, even if he's a backup quarterback his entire career, he's going to make $30 million, right? Maybe more.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things. His upside in football is all-pro Super Bowl champ, and he'll be able to to be as good as he can be on that football field.
Well, now he's made the decision to play football, but we always talk about his limitations, right? His height concerns. What has baseball taught him that will actually help him with football?
Yeah, I mean, I think baseball teaches you how to fail, how to learn. And, we know nowadays football isn't necessarily, you have to be 6'6" and throw over top of the line. You got to find lanes. And Kyler Murray's fast enough, quick enough. And again, they're going to put together a system that these, some of these spread, RPO type systems in the NFL will get him those throwing lanes. It doesn't matter if he's 5'10". He's going to find guys to throw to.
I want to read you a tweet from Justin Verlander today as we'll get to guys who have fully committed to baseball here. And Manny Machado and Bryce Harper, even if they don't have teams lining up necessarily to fully commit to them just yet. They remain unsigned. And Justin Verlander tweeted this out. This was about an hour ago. 100 or so free agents left unsigned. System is broken. They blame quote unquote rebuilding, but that's I'll just abbreviate. That's BS. His words. You're telling me you couldn't sign Bryce or Manny for 10 years and go from there? Seems like a good place to start a rebuild to me. 26 to 36 is a great performance window too. Talking about their respective ages within a 10-year contract. You hear that, and your reaction is what?
First of all, I like that Verlander's talking. I like that the veterans, the guys that are going to be passing the torch to the younger generation, they're stepping up, being leaders.
Yeah.
That being said, the union made their bed. Now they got to sleep in it. They put together a system where there's a salary cap, basically with the luxury tax threshold. Mm-hmm. It's really not that high. I mean, teams were already spending that much anyway. They put a cap and they don't have a floor. Every other sport that has a cap has a floor that's within 10 or 15%. So every team kind of spends about the same.
Yeah.
If you're not spending enough in the NHL, guess what? They give all of the other players, a percentage, a higher salary.
Yeah, to get to that floor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To get to that floor.
Yep.
In the NBA and the NFL, every team basically spends the most that they can spend to try to put the best team on the field. Major League Baseball doesn't do that, and now you're seeing what's happened to these free agents.
You're speaking to my soul, because as a WNBA player, we're currently in CBA negotiations, and these are the type of things I guess we're trying to address. Do you think this is the biggest issue with the MLB and their CBA?
I do. I think that the players had a long run of taking it to the owners. When Alex Rodriguez signed his $252 million deal in 2000, everyone said, this is crazy. Baseball is going to it's going to go bankrupt because we can't pay these players. Players had the best of the owners 15 years ago. That's totally flipped now. Owners have the players. They've kind of taken them to the woodshed in the last CBA. Mm-hmm. And now, when to Verlander's point, we have 100 free agents. A lot of them, the top free agents that haven't signed yet, and spring training is happening right now. It's a bad place to be.
You got to be prepared for maybe a diminished product on the field early in the season, right? I mean, the April games, the late March games, you're taking players overseas and playing games. Like, the owners are asking a lot out of the players now, and now they're not even paying them late into spring training. I mean, last year, it was late February when J.D. Martinez signed, and you worry sometimes about setting a precedent for something like that, because all due respect to Martinez, and he had a great year, but this is Machado and Harper who are entering their prime. Right now, it's the age 31, 32 season upcoming for J.D. Martinez. Mark Teixeira here in studio. So as for Harper and Machado, seemingly the first two dominoes, and once they sign, maybe this 100 or so free agents will start signing elsewhere.
98.
Where do you see them going?
I mean, I just try to use common sense. I don't have any inside, because I'll give owners and GMs and agents credit. They're not talking, which is good, which is the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be quiet. It's supposed to be a free market. So no one really knows anything. That being said, I just look at the Phillies for Harper and the White Sox with Machado. They've been connected all offseason. The Phillies and White Sox have a lot of money to spend, and if you're going to get that 10-year, $300 million plus contract, it could be with one of those two teams.
Now, going from players to teams, what team should we really be excited about, coming up the season?
Yeah, I like what the Cardinals did this offseason. They won 88 games last year in a very tough division. It's always one of those organizations that's there. They have great ownership, great GM. They added Paul Goldschmidt, which to me has been the most consistent slugger in all of baseball. He plays Gold Glove defense. And you also added Andrew Miller. And Andrew Miller has been hurt a little bit the last few years, so his value kind of dropped. They got one of the most dominant left-handed pitchers in all of baseball. He can come in 6th, 7th, 8th inning. He can close the game if you need him to. And you add two guys like that onto a Cardinals team that was right there last season. I like what they did.
This time of year for you on a personal level, I know you're a couple seasons removed from it, but do you ever get that sort of like your body is just on autopilot? You're like, hey man, it's mid-February. I got to be somewhere.
No,
I got to be swinging a bat somewhere.
Yeah, I thought I did. But with me, because of my injuries towards the end of my career, I was kind of dreading going to spring training because I knew I was about to go into 8 months of pain. Exactly.
It's gonna be long.
And so it wasn't until mid to late spring training that my body was like, okay, I'm warmed up enough. I'm ready for this long season. So I don't miss it at all. I tell people I miss hitting home runs. I'll always miss hitting home runs.
Right.
I don't miss the grind of spring training
And now that we're being sentimental, let's switch from the bodies because I'm just getting hurt thinking about it right now with my upcoming season coming up. One of the fun aspects was seeing that Mariano Rivera was selected unanimously, your former teammate. How did you digest that news? I feel like it was long overdue.
It was. The fact that some of these great players weren't 100% Hall of Famers, it was crazy. And the reason I said I did a lot of interviews after that announcement, Mariano is the full package. If I could build a perfect teammate, it would be Mariano Rivera for so many reasons. And add in the fact that if he wanted to right now, he could pick up a ball and save 40 games. I truly believe that. He stays in great shape. He could still probably throw that cutter.
Oh, yeah.
And even I faced him in his prime at 96 miles an hour. Even at 88 to 90 towards the end of his career, he was getting outs at an incredible clip. I truly believe Mariano could save 40 today.
All right, you hear that, Mariano? That paycheck's out there, man. That paycheck, although the
Cash
Yankees
in.
101
bullpen,
free agents.
And that's what I'm saying. Wait, the number just went up. The number just went up by one.
we got enough guys looking for work. Mark Teixeira, thank you, man. Thank you for the time. It feels like baseball when we're talking it with a guy who played the game. A reminder this Valentine's Day, your Rose Authority, 1-800-Flowers.com, has the best deals and bouquets around, like 18 red roses for $29.99 or 24 assorted roses plus a vase for $10 more. To order, go to 1-800-Flowers.com, click the radio icon, and enter Stephen A. It's Chiney Ogwumike, Randy Scott in for Stephen A. We have plenty of NBA to get to when we come back.
Let's do it.
Including Magic Johnson naming names.
Oh, not Kevin Durant.
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
Get it?
In the sky. Wait, should I go Bradley? Oh.
No, don't go Bradley.
In the shallow Gaga.
Chiney Ogwumike, Randy Scott. We're in for Stephen A. on the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. If you miss any part of the Stephen A. Smith Show today, go check it out on demand in the Stephen A. Smith podcast. It's brought to you by Capital One. Capital One is reimagining banking, offering accounts with no fees or minimums that can be opened in just 5 minutes. Capital One, what's in your wallet? Grammys last night.
Yeah.
You were watching.
I was.
Live?
Well, I was actually multitasking. I was hosting
Okay.
NBA Insiders here with one eye on the Grammys.
I was going to say, I was like, you were working last night. Okay. What jumped out to you?
What jumped out to me, number one, was Cardi B's outfit because she reminded me of like the oyster in the middle of a clam. Or is it in the middle of oyster, the pearl?
The pearl's in the middle of the oyster.
And then also giving me Ariel vibes from The Little Mermaid, like the Ursula lady
Who's
too.
it's, what's it's galore.
But she did it better, clearly.
Okay.
Performance. Oh, the
Was she a winner
opening was
last
something
night?
crazy. She won Best Rap Album for Invasion of Privacy.
For sure.
Yeah.
Duh.
The most powerful scene I would have to say is the opening because Alicia Keys hosted. Michelle Obama came out. Jada Pinkett Smith was there on this opening thing. Lady Gaga was up there, and Jennifer Lopez. So it was like women out there
Sure.
to start the show.
Get
Let's
it.
go.
So Michelle Obama, was she nominated for anything?
She was nominated for Best Surprise Guest Appearance. And she
I
won.
saw a tweet.
She won.
What great tweet! It was Michelle should just win an award for being
Just
Michelle.
for being there.
Just for being
and
Michelle
she came
Obama.
in like 5 minutes before it started and left ready. Like it was just
Perfect.
It was perfect.
Right? I mean, she's not trying to stick around for like, I'm sorry, best metal album?
We
No
should-
thanks.
We should give out Grammys for. They should be like artist that is an athlete.
Oh.
Because, I mean, I only know the
Who has-
NBA guys.
Yeah,
Are
but
there
who
guys
really-
in the NFL that really have music careers?
Who really has bars, though?
Damian Lillard really has bars.
Stop it.
Yes.
Really?
Yes. He goes on tour. Victor Oladipo can sing.
No.
100%.
Like sing
Go to
or like
Spotify
Post Malone
right
sing?
now, and he can sing.
Sorry, I'm not trying to
Victor
be
Oladipo,
smirched.
I'm going to show you during the break.
Posty.
He can sing.
Okay.
Dame has real bars.
Okay.
Lonzo, questionable.
Lonzo Ball?
Lonzo Ball,
There's a
questionable.
lot that's questionable.
Found
about
out
Lonzo
that
Ball.
Shaq. I think
Stop
Mo
with
Bamba
Shaq.
should have been nominated for Best Athlete-Inspired Song.
Sure.
Yeah, that song by Shaq
Was
West
that song nominated at all? Oh, I know the song.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
Turn Up. It wasn't nominated, but I was like,
What?
for athlete-inspired song, that would have gotten a Grammy.
Do you see Alex Rodriguez's outfit?
On point. He even said, like, I should have
Oh.
got a Grammy for my outfit itself.
He's not. Listen, he was anybody that gets some attention when you're arm in arm with J-Lo.
Power couple.
For real. And
Power
her hat,
couple.
strong.
It was not Olivia Pope level, but it was
up there.
closest to it.
There's a lot more to get to, actual sports-wise. Chiney Ogwumike, Randy Scott with you. When we come back, all things NBA, including Magic Johnson, showing some frustration with the Pelicans and how they handled the Anthony Davis discussion. Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio.
From coast to coast, the Stephen A. Smith Show starts right now.
All right.
What's a dream to a God? I never know the words. Wait, let me get this. Dream to a God.
Yeah.
What's a God to a non-believer?
Mm-hmm.
Anything. Yo.
You're all about the music today.
Anytime I do radio, I always might as well have it be a party.
But you got the mic in front of you. And it's just like light bulbs on. That's it.
Don't you get that person in the living room with their little whatever?
But that's what's authentic. Okay, Chiney Ogwumike, Randy Scott, we're in for Stephen A. on the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. That's what's authentic about you, though. Like, this is you in the makeup room.
Oh, that's fact.
No cameras, nowhere.
You're right.
This is who you are. You're not some wallflower, and then it's like, oh, the lights are on. It's time to be fake and time to be whatever.
No.
Like, this is just, you take Chiney at 100%, now it's Chiney at like 110.
110. You're right. Just bring
turn it up.
Just get it game ready. Game
Turn
face on.
Up a bit. We're back on ESPN Radio. 888-SAY-ESPN is the number. That's 888-729-3776. The Stephen A. Smith Show is brought to you by Pennzoil Synthetics, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. We thought we were going to come in and talk about Magic Johnson.
Yes.
And we will. There's plenty of time. We have an hour to work with. But we have news that's moments old from the NFL. Cleveland Browns, they've made it official. I'm going to go ahead and just read the story, guys. I know we said we were waiting for it, but we're going to do it because the Browns tweeted it out. They have signed Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt, running back formerly of the Kansas City Chiefs. He was released because of a video that surfaced showing him repeatedly shoving and striking a woman in a hotel hallway. So he's been out of football ever since that, and now he has an NFL employer at the very least, and it's the Cleveland Browns. Your reaction, Chiney?
So I'm not someone that ever imparts judgment because I feel like I'm not in the position to judge my next man, right? Human being. And I understand in these situations, it's become a recurrent issue for the NFL. If there's one thing that they have not done per se well, it's creating a system in which they can react to when they have situations, controversies, and such, especially when it comes to domestic violence, domestic abuse. And I'm not here saying that this man should be in the league or he should not be in the league. I just want to see remorse, action, and follow through from the NFL. And if they feel like he underwent the proper steps to address his situation in the past, and he's worthy of being on a team, I'm not here to argue it. But I think systemically is the big issue. When these situations arise, or at least if you're going to have a goal of mitigating them or eliminating them, that's what we should be focusing on. I know some people should say he should never be in the league. Some people say, give him another chance. I'm not judge or jury, but I just want to see remorse, actions. I think I believe in it. We're America. I believe in second chances.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not mad he got signed. The Browns, obviously, it's interesting because if you're looking at a team that needs him, clearly they have the potential there and they have a good base with their quarterback. But I guess I can just say I'm not surprised. I just hope big picture the NFL is like, okay, we're done having these situations. Let's find ways to rehabilitate and eliminate these things from moving forward.
All right, so you are being probably professional and magnanimous about this. I'm not willing to judge someone, and I'll go ahead and do that.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and do that because I don't have this to belabor a point or use an analogy of sports related. I don't have this club in my bag. Like, I'm not saying I've never argued with my wife or a significant other. We will continue to have arguments, and that's what happens part of a marriage here. But I don't have that switch where I express myself physically with a woman. I just don't. So I don't respect those who do.
No one should.
I don't respect those who do. I'm not someone who's going to sit here and say you should never work again because then you're ruining 2 lives.
Exactly.
Okay? And thank God this wasn't worse for this young woman in this hotel hallway, that it wasn't any sort of there's no coming back from that incident. Yeah. He does need to express contrition. He has done part of that, and he still has to serve whatever penalty it is with the National Football League. Probably going to be placed on the commissioner's, non-exempt list,
yep.
and you move on from there. It's probably going to be at least 6 games because that is the baseline for any sort of domestic incident with the National Football League. So the Browns are taking a chance. The Browns are buying low.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they're doing.
They are.
They're buying low on a young man, and he is young. And that's probably the biggest difference between this and Ray Rice. Ray Rice was at the end of his career. Ray Rice was no longer, quite frankly, NFL caliber at the running back position when his
And how many strikes have you had?
Yeah, and well, that's another thing with Kareem Hunt because this is one incident of a handful.
Yep.
Since he's been out of the University of Toledo, since he's been in the National Football League.
We're finding about these instances after the fact. Like, okay, we had this one. Now things are getting unearthed. Like,
I want to be clear. This is one of a handful of just incidents, not domestic incidents. This is the only domestic incident we know of.
Yeah.
But he has had other accusations of being aggressive and being physical at bars, and that's a problem. Like, man, I feel like 1,000 years old, but like, there's just no. Man, you're out at a bar wherever you are playing at the National Football League. You're on the road. You're in Kansas City, whatever it is. You're out at 3 a.m. The odds of something great happening to you, the odds of like, I was out at 3 a.m.
and things went well for me.
You know what happened? I saved a life.
That's only on TV, fam.
I split atoms. I cured. It was 3 a.m. I was at a bar and I solved all the world's problems. No, man. Like, more often than not, if you're going to make news after 3 a.m., it's not the kind of news you want.
Exactly.
And that's what we got with Kareem Hunt. And that's why on November 30th, within hours of this video going public, again, it was an incident from February 2018 where, I don't even think we need to say he allegedly did anything. He did it. You can see it on the video.
It's there.
But that incident happened in February. The video came out November 30th. Later that night, the Chiefs released him. And since then, he's been without an NFL team until today. The Browns have signed him moments ago.
Yeah, I can't say that. I think we can agree wholeheartedly, and me especially as a woman, that we don't want anyone in that situation where a man puts his hands on a woman or whatever it is, attacks a woman, or a woman attacks a man. Like, we understand there's boundaries both ways, right? But the problem we have with the NFL is that they don't have a baseline saying, if this happens, this is exactly how we're going to respond each and every time.
Right.
And until that baseline is there, I know there's 6 games, suspension, all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Until we have something consistent, it's sort of like, what can we do? And we're the ones that are rightfully indignant about this, right? Mm-hmm. If this happens again, are you going to learn from the mistakes of the past as a league? Are you going to start penalizing players even more that do this just as a deterrent? Like, these are the questions that surface in my head, because we all know as society this is wrong. We all understand that you can't separate the athlete, as a human being, and the player, because at 3 a.m., you're still the same, right? You're still Kareem Hunt. And you're not just Kareem Hunt that is just a regular guy. Like, you with much power, what is a Spider-Man quote?
Yeah.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, too much is much is given, much is asked. Yeah.
So for me, it's just frustrating because I don't want to condemn someone's career when they're that young. But at the same time, we understand that this should not stand in society. What are you going to do about it in the NFL? 23
years old. He'll be 24 by the time he reports, by the time week 1 rolls around in the NFL. We have the timeline right now up on ESPN. It's just worth noting. February 2018 is the incident. November 2018 is the TMZ publishing the video, and then he's released. And now today, you spin it forward. Here we are, February 11th, and Kareem Hunt has an employer in the National Football League. It's the Cleveland Browns, and John Dorsey in the Browns front office releasing a statement confirming this and announcing it and saying in part, quote, "We fully understand and respect the complexity of questions and issues in signing a player with Kareem's history and do not condone his actions. Given what we know about Kareem through our extensive research, we believe he deserves a second chance, but certainly with the understanding that he has to go through critical and essential steps to become a performing member of this organization, aside from what the NFL determines from their ongoing investigation."
Which is what
and
you
that's
want to
part
hear.
of a longer statement. Right, it is. He played in Ohio. He plays college ball in Ohio. He played at Toledo. He comes out a revelatory talent for Kansas City. Dual threat, fits with the NFL, fits with that position and where it is now in 2018 and 2019 now moving forward. He's a receiving threat out of the backfield in addition to being a between the tackles guy. He's capable of being a 3-down back. I get it. And from the Browns' standpoint, as long as you're willing to deal with the PR knock, because, listen, the Browns are a feel-good story, and they have been.
They are.
I don't know that continues in the same way after today. I think some of the shine is off of them becoming a feel-good story because, quite frankly, you signed someone who's the exact opposite of being a feel-good player. Kareem Hunt is not someone to root for unless you're related to him, unless you benefit from him financially and his success. The Browns became a story that is more difficult to root for as of about 15 minutes ago.
And that's 100% factual. It's true. I mean, you had all of the over expectations that you overperformed this past season, right? And then that momentum is supposed to carry you through to next season, and then you get hit with this. And I wonder how women, fans feel, especially after all of that. Like, it's probably a tough position to be in. Do you root for the team despite you don't know how he's going to react in the future? And I think the only person that can calm down any kind of negative bias that you can have from this point moving forward is Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
His behavior. How is he going to move forward? Is he going to be the best teammate, the best version of a man that his team currently expects him to be? Or will he continue to operate in the way he did and will continue uncovering stuff? That's the risk you have in signing him, even though the risk is low based on his stock.
Chiney Ogwumike, Randy Scott in for Stephen A. on the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Commercial insurance through Progressive protects your business and your dream. Choose from over 30 coverage options at progressivecommercial.com. As we're just sort of absorbing this news and we're getting it in real time along with everybody else who might be watching on ESPN News or listening on ESPN Radio or the ESPN app, it's worth noting here that this is such I don't even want to say a gray area because I think you inherently know what is right and what is wrong in terms of how to treat another human being. However, we do have to show and almost give credit to Hunt for doing everything since this incident and since it became public, whatever his motives may be. Obviously, he's trying to save his career, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's trying to save his earning potential at the age of 23, but at least he continues to say the right things.
Yeah.
And so even in his statement today, this is released by the Cleveland Browns, this is a quote from Kareem Hunt. "First off, I would like to once again apologize for my actions last year. What I did was wrong and inexcusable. That is not the man I was raised to be, and I've learned a great deal from that experience and certainly should have been more truthful about it after the fact." And then he goes on to express that he's a work in progress as a person, but committed to taking advantage of the support systems in place. He thanks Jimmy Haslam and the Cleveland Browns organization and so on and so forth. Says he's committed to taking the steps necessary. Probably anger management is in there, whatever the league might mandate. So he's doing the right things. You don't want to write him off, ban him at such a young age.
Exactly. That's
I understand
the trouble,
that. But it is tough, and that's probably the knock that I don't know, Twitter or whatever's going to say. It's like you're either one thing or the other. You're either 100% against Kareem Hunt or you're 100% for him, and thereby you're insensitive to the issue. There's a lot to dissect on both sides because obviously you know what's right and wrong, as we said, behavior-wise, but at the same time, it is an NFL, just a purely NFL caliber talent who now, as of, 20 minutes ago, has an NFL job again.
And I think for me, it's strange, but I feel like I'm both. Like, I don't want to be in the position, again, I'm not judge or jury, to condemn someone's career because we all make mistakes. But there's some mistakes that should not keep repeatedly happening, not just with an individual, but with the NFL in general. Yeah. So I just think there's so many reasons to be frustrated here. And it's a difficult situation. But when I look at this, I remember this past season, I was so excited to watch Countdown every Sunday, right? I was never more intentional with watching Countdown after he got released and had the interview, I think, with Lisa Salters.
Yeah.
And there was where I was watching his contrition. I was like, how sorry is he? because this right here, I think, is going to determine if he's going to come back in the NFL.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people were like, oh, he was semi-sorry. And it was a hard read. But I also think as athletes, it's hard to express your vulnerability when your microscope is on you so much. Everyone's reading. Like, you felt like his career was going to come down to that one moment. I don't know if you watched that.
I did. No, I did. And I thought Lisa did a great job with a bit of a reluctant interview subject, even though the interview was at his request. And to me, are you sorry you got caught? Are you sorry the video came out? Are you sorry you did what you did in the video?
I think.
And that's a fair question.
And we don't know. It's a fair question. I think he actually is sorry, because I don't think he ran away from saying sorry per se.
No.
And again, the first words in his statement is, I apologize, right? So I think he will continue to say sorry as many times as necessary. He even said during that interview a couple months ago that I'm already in the process of getting rehab and counseling and trying to understand why this happened and further keep that from happening again. So again, like it's a very difficult situation. And for me, it tears me to pieces because I am starting to fall in love with football in general, the NFL. Shoot, we had AAF Day today. Everyone's so hyped for that league as well. And you think about the big picture implications. Like if there's one thing that loomed over this wonderfully successful, better ratings NFL season, it's these type of issues. These type of issues that keep happening. And again, you suck the fun and joy out of the Browns last season.
Couple of things. If you're a Browns fan, it's a difficult spot because you didn't ask for this.
No.
You didn't ask for this. You grew up in Cleveland. You grew up rooting for this team that's just been largely awful since it's come back to Cleveland. You're dyed in the wool. Like you come by it honestly. Maybe it's a family thing, a regional thing. Like you're in it. You're not going anywhere. You've been a Browns fan.
The rest of the country was in it because Hard Knocks and all the day-to-day storylines. Yeah, and Baker, exactly.
Baker and
like you got
Chubb
all of us invested in your team.
Right. And then you're just at work, you're doing your thing, you're living your life, and then suddenly because your team makes this move, it puts you in a terrible spot. Like you're rooting for this team that just signed this guy. Obviously you don't agree with the behavior, but do you still root for the team?
Do you support him now?
And why shouldn't you?
Do you compromise your values?
Because someone else made a decision, it puts your fandom in question. Suddenly you have to defend your fandom online, on social media, with your friends who maybe aren't Browns fans or your family who aren't Browns fans. How can you root for that team? And you're like, well, hold on, man. I've been rooting for them for decades, and maybe I just won't root for the player. How do you separate the player from the team? How do you separate the actions from the player? How do you separate the actions from the human being? There's so many layers to this, and I think that's why sometimes the NFL gets a bad rep with regard to this, because domestic violence, that's a societal issue.
Yeah.
So the NFL is just a reflection of society. I mean, these are human beings in their own right, and I don't know that domestic violence. Matter of fact, I'm almost positive, and this is rampant carelessness on my part with statistics here, that I want to say the incidents of reported domestic violence in the National Football League are lower than they are in society. It's no worse. It's just the celebrity.
Yeah.
Celebrity and powerful men and powerful athletes.
It's true. And I think we tend to lump together the nature of the game and the beasts that are evolving from, and these are the best and worst case of what happens when you play in the NFL. You hear about the issues that these guys have when they retire and the aggression and the anger management that might happen with some of these football players. And then you continue to hear about these other issues like domestic violence, domestic abuse that happen, and you tend to lump them in together, and you're saying, how can I root for a product that turns men into this, and then this is also happening, and you try to connect those, and they're not necessarily connected, but these are issues that fans have to constantly juggle with, and it's just so difficult.
No, you're absolutely right. That's Chiney Ogwumike. I'm Randy Scott. We're in for Stephen A. on the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app, and you know what? This is sort of reflective of how this story resonates and the reaction it gets, because we've been putting the phone number out for an hour and 17 minutes so far, and now we're getting calls.
Oh, we are?
Yes, we have a call. Why don't we just start at the top? We've got Dave in New Jersey wants to talk about Kareem Hunt. Dave, you're on the Stephen A. Smith Show.
Hey, how you doing, guys? I feel that the protocol in the NFL is too soft. I mean, these are regular human beings. You said it. You're right. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody deserves a second chance. But if there was a stricter rule in place, these guys would think twice before they put their jobs in jeopardy. Not only their jobs in jeopardy, their wives, their kids, their family, the fans. So the NFL doesn't come up with a stricter protocol on domestic violence, either we don't allow it, period. These things are going to continue to happen.
Okay. All right, Dave, thank you for the call. We've got Butch in Louisville. Butch, you're not going to yell at me about Louisville basketball, are you?
No, man, I'm actually a UK fan, but U of L's women are hot right now.
There we go.
That's true.
Hey, I don't agree with him being brought back, man, because like I said during the screening, I don't see how, even if whatever the severity of Ray Rice's situation was, I mean, fair is fair, man. And look, it just shows where we are as a society anyway. I mean, I've got daughters, so I don't play that anyway, man. But how can you allow these teams allow themselves to bring back or sign these people that commit domestic violence? I might be getting off topic, but I don't like the 49ers. I never have. But I don't see why Colin Kaepernick had to go through anything just because of what he believed in. And he's taking a stance for certain people. He explained that this was nothing against the flag, and people just put a spin on it the way they wanted to because they don't want to talk about race. It's just one more strike against the NFL as far as I'm concerned. I mean, Kaepernick did nothing of the sort, and you get people in here just, I'm sorry, and you get to sit out for 6 months and you're back playing. That's all I got, y'all.
All right, Butch. No, I appreciate it. I think we're probably going to focus more on the domestic violence situation in Kareem Hunt rather than dovetail that into Colin Kaepernick. But I get it. I get the whole, what are we choosing to really punish here?
Yeah.
And how come one guy gets to come back when the other guy doesn't? I understand the point.
And think about how many facets of the game in which fans are being challenged, based on their beliefs. So it's tough. And when you look at the big picture of this, I mean, again, I think we all come down to it. Another strike in a season where you were doing better. You were doing better, getting fans back on board. Now fans are having to question themselves again.
I know what Butch was talking about. I've got daughters and I've got a sister and I've got a wife. What we need, guys, I mean, and guys, speaking directly to guys, is just respect the fact that it's a human being, that it's a male that it is a woman in this situation. It shouldn't matter you have women in your life. How about, because it's the right thing to do.
Thank you.
Is not hit women. Like
right?
this is not difficult. I don't know, man. Whatever. I have sisters. I have a daughter. Yeah, okay. So if you didn't, then it's okay?
Yeah,
no.
I do think he's onto something, though. I don't know if it was Butch or before. It was basically the fact that you need to create some kind of mental note in place where these athletes are out. And, I'm speaking for myself as well.
Yeah.
And you will think, I don't want to risk it all because of what the league might do to me if I put myself in this situation.
Yeah, you put the fear.
Clearly, there's not enough fear.
6 games isn't enough.
Yeah, it's
At least right now. It's the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. Chiney Ogwumike, Randy Scott with you. More calls in just a moment. Need seats to a game? Download the Vivid Seats app and enter promo code CHAMPS, 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 at checkout to get 10% off your first order. Don't buy just any seat. Get a Vivid seat. More calls on this as Kareem Hunt has a new job with the Cleveland Browns. Did the Browns really need him, strictly from a football perspective? That, plus we will get to the NBA as long as more NFL news doesn't fall and break and drop right into our laps. Chiney, Randy, the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio.
I don't think anybody can deny this reality. When you look at Paul George and the way that he has been performing, and you look at Russell Westbrook, and then you look at those young athletes that they have, I got to tell y'all something, man. Oklahoma City may be the biggest threat to the Golden State Warriors. I look at the powers that be in the East, Milwaukee, Boston, Toronto, Philadelphia. You know what impressed me? I thought Philadelphia had the best pre-deadline moves because they add Jimmy Butler and then they add Tobias Harris with Redick, with Simmons, with Joel Embiid. That's something special to behold. Their depth is still a question mark, but I got to give credit where credit is due. But then Milwaukee, who's got the best record in basketball at 40-13. Toronto's 40-16. When you look at Milwaukee, adding Mirotic, he can ball. He's a stretch 4. He can do some damage for you on the perimeter. And that's the one huge question mark that you had about the Milwaukee Bucks. So that also makes it very, very, very interesting. I just got to tell y'all that. And so I look at it from that perspective, and things are getting very interesting in the Eastern Conference. The Boston Celtics, let me tell you what I saw last night. I saw a team that had trouble getting out and defending the three, but I also saw a team that's still exhausting themselves trying to fit in Gordon Hayward, not paying enough attention to how it's compromising the rest of their squad. I saw a Terry Rozier, who was balling last night, get relegated to the bench because it was time to bring Kyrie Irving back in. I say, why have Marcus Smart in there? Why not put Terry Rozier and Kyrie Irving in there at the same time? Why not do that? That seemed to be something that would have made the most sense to me. Brad Stevens is going to have to figure this out. I haven't given up on Boston coming out of the East, but Brad Stevens is going to have to figure this out. He really is.
Back. Chiney Ogwumike, Randy Scott, Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. In for
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
I like Dallas. I like Dallas. Hey.
Chiney Ogwumike, Randy Scott back with you. It's the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN
Yeah,
Radio.
yeah.
If you miss any of the Stephen A. Smith Show today, go check it out on demand in the Stephen A. Smith podcast, brought to you by Capital One. Capital One is reimagining banking, offering accounts with no fees or minimums that can be opened in 5 minutes. Capital One, what's in your wallet? Your pick in the Eastern Conference, Chiney.
Why are you doing this to me?
Quickly, I know, I'm doing it. We don't have a ton of time. I don't know what time we're done. But.
Right now, I think that, I'm going to go with my head. My head is telling me the Bucks. Because the Bucks have been consistent. If you look at their record against top teams, they have done damage against those teams. Giannis, MVP candidate. Adding Nikola Mirotic, another three-point shooter to one of the best three-point shooting teams. That will help them when it comes to the playoffs. Sag off of Giannis. You have another sniper to spread the floor so Giannis can still do his work. My heart is telling me Philly. Because if you look at this Philly team, I think they're bullies. You look at the length. Jimmy Butler, defender. Joel Embiid arguably could be a defensive player of the year. You've got J.J. Redick creating spacing. You add Tobias Harris, who can space the floor but is long and can switch on defense. Yep. You've got Ben Simmons, who's also another good defender. That was his number one thing he wanted to do this coming season, to be a defender. So I'm looking at Philly. If they can get their ish together and put those egos together, actually put those egos apart, play together, I think Philly can make some noise and be bullies. They can't play finesse Warriors basketball, but they can be bullies. So my heart is telling me Philly, but my head's telling me the Bucks.
Pacers have won 4 or 5 in a row without Victor Oladipo, which is amazing. It's just not sustainable.
Yeah.
So I think the Pacers come back to the pack. I'm saying that because right now it's a 4-5 matchup. Philly at the 4, Boston at the 5. I don't know that the Philly wants to see Boston in the 5. I don't know that Boston wants to see Philly either, but that could be a dynamite first-round matchup. A reminder, the Stephen A. Smith Show is brought to you by Wendy's, proud sponsor, the 2019 John R. Wooden Player of the Year.
Oh, I won that.
We've seen Adam Schefter talking on the Kareem Hunt situation. He said he projects possible 10 to 12 game suspension for Kareem Hunt, who was just signed today by the Cleveland Browns. Today, it's been a lot of fun. It's been 2 full hours. We need to do this more often. Up next, the Will Kane Show on ESPN Radio. For Chiney, I'm Randy. Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio.